FM News Talk 97.1. On-demand audio.
To join the program, obviously, huge show, huge news last night. I think the biggest news, really, since the Berlin Wall fell. Absolutely enormous. Joining us on the phone right now, he's the host of War Stories on Fox, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. Sir, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Anna, how are you today?
I feel I am so proud of our military right now and their bravery and what they were able to accomplish yesterday. Words can't express.
Well, and remarkable skill and extraordinary technology all adds up to the best military in the world, and obviously the bravest and brightest of a generation that's out there doing this kind of thing.
This mission was, by all accounts, it was a pretty flawless mission. 40 minutes it took.
And not only that, but a considerable distance to get there. They had to postpone the whole thing for 24 hours while they waited for the right weather. You had to get all the way back out to the Carl Vinson to have the body, the forensics done on it, and the final autopsy, and then the preparations for burial at sea. So it was a remarkable undertaking by these extraordinary young Americans.
And you, from what I understand, I believe that you may have met some of the very soldiers that went in and accomplished this mission.
Well, these are Navy SEALs. I've been now deployed overseas with, in the Philippines, Iraq, and certainly the last 4 trips out to Afghanistan with U.S. Special Operations Forces. These SEALs are SEALs who have gone the extra step. You first had to volunteer to join the Navy. Then you had to volunteer to become a SEAL. Then you had to get through BUDS, the Basic Underwater Demolition School, which has a washout rate of over 70%. And then, after they'd been a SEAL for a while, to be assigned to this particular unit that used to be known as SEAL Team 6, this Tier 1 unit, which is held separate from all the other Special Operations Forces, just like the Delta Force is, and some other a very small handful of other forces that don't work directly for the Special Operations Command. They work directly for the National Command Authority, working on this mission since last September.
Wow.
When you think about the training that they went through, the rehearsals, the planning, thinking of every possible contingency, that anything that could go wrong. And thus, when something did go wrong, the loss of one of the helicopters, it went boom. Went to Plan B, and Plan B was executed flawlessly.
Absolutely amazing how this went down, and it's such a testament of the strength and the skill of our men and women in uniform. Just absolutely brilliant, and my hat's off to them. This was apparently, we learned, we got the tip that ultimately led to the not really the capture, the killing of Osama bin Laden, because of interrogations apparently as far back as 2007.
Well, apparently it might even go back further than that, but there's no doubt that these were the intelligence that initially started the process, that tie all the loose ends together, allowed them to carry out the mission, was as the consequence of what came to be called enhanced interrogation techniques, conducted in various places, not necessarily at Guantanamo. And under those conditions, they gave up the code name or the nickname, if you will, of the courier. It took years to put it together after that, just trying, as I say, tying loose ends together, conducting surveillance of that particular site, overhead imagery, signals intelligence, everything, and then, of course, developing the human intelligence. Now, no one wanted to talk about that at the presidential press conference here a little while ago, but I have no doubt that there's some Pakistani general, or at least a colonel, but probably a general, who now has $25 million in his checking account that he didn't have there before.
Wow, that would make absolute sense. And bin Laden was apparently hiding out in plain sight, as is being reported, in Pakistan. Do you think that there is any chance that Pakistan knew that he was in their country and that he was essentially in a very, an upscale kind of touristy area, as it's being reported?
Well, Dana, there's a military academy less than 200 yards from where this compound is. The compound is significantly larger than others, and many of the others, in addition to the 3 regiments of the Pakistani Army that are right in that neighborhood, there's also a large number of retired Pakistani military and intelligence officials who have this as their kind of, this is their retirement homes. These are not people who are, waiting for their Social Security checks to show up.
Right.
So it's impossible, in my thinking, that there were not at least some of those who were in that neighborhood who did not know who their guest was next door. I mean, Pakistan is a very, very insular country in many respects. A foreigner shows up, and obviously bin Laden is a foreigner, and nobody asks a question as to who's there. This is a larger house than others have in the neighborhood. You've got concertina wire or razor wire, as some people call it, on top of the wall, which others don't have in the neighborhood. It would be impossible for certain officials not to have known it. Now, did they know at the top of the Pakistani government? I have no idea. But it would strike me as being implausible at best, and impossible more likely that there were not several officials, current or former Pakistani government officials, who had to know that bin Laden was there.
Wow. And I hear that Pakistan, that their government really wasn't briefed until after the mission occurred.
Well, probably because of the uncertainty as to who knew and who didn't.
Right.
And obviously you don't want to be given away when you've got this is a very, very high-risk mission. And as you know, I'm no fan of Barack Obama. But it was a very bold decision. Someone said today it was courageous. There's no courage required other than political courage. But it was a very bold decision because this could easily have gone badly.
Right. And he could have bombed it, but instead ordered for a human operation. Well,
he opted to try to capture him, which, obviously the best outcome of all would have been capture him and bring him back and interrogate him back here in the United States or in Gitmo or whatever, and let him stand trial or a military tribunal for the horrendous crimes that he's committed. But it was a bold decision for him to say, yep, I want to take on that risk, political as it was, the possibility it could have ended up like Desert One did when Jimmy Carter was there.
Right.
You think about how it could have gone, and thank God the technology, the skill, and the courage all tied together with that bold decision, and it worked.
I want to ask you about something that has a lot of people talking. There's a lot of controversy over the decision to have a burial for bin Laden at sea. And I understand, I completely understand the reasons for doing so. Some people didn't want to inflame Muslim tensions. I'm not really PC about that. But they thought that it perhaps might risk more lives of our men and women in uniform. What do you make of the burial at sea? Is it common?
And I said this to my colleagues at Fox here just an hour ago. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, they could, as far as I'm concerned, they could have dumped it under the garbage scow. I think it's important that body not be a place that it becomes a memorial to the kind of brutality that radical Islam is perpetrating on this country and around the globe, and not just against Westerners, but against fellow Muslims. Second, there's not a place that would take him. Apparently, if you can believe what John Brennan said in the press conference here a little while ago,
right.
There's not a country that wanted him for the very same reasons. Certainly Saudi Arabia, which has its own problems, where were they going to bury him?
Right.
Yemen? I mean, he is, after all, a Yemeni, and you might end up with a very radical government in Yemen by the time all of this business shakes out that was created starting last December in Tunisia and now spreading across the Middle East. But I don't have a problem with them, providing for an appropriate means of disposal of the body,
right,
in accord with Muslim tradition. Doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Now, do you think, last question I have for you, I know you've been doing a lot of media today, you're in high demand, this is far from over. This is, I think, a very symbolic victory. It's a huge testament to the skill of our military, but there's likely someone waiting in the wings to assume power where bin Laden was.
There's no doubt this is a great boost for the morale of the American people, I think for freedom-loving people everywhere. But it's not over. I mean, you put it very, very succinctly right there. Because Osama bin Laden hasn't been calling the shots for attacks against Westerners for at least 5 years.
Right.
He's been living with nothing but courier service to get his messages out. And we now know that it's been confirmed. So he's not been an operational controller for some time. But it is a blow to the whole idea of radical Islam.
Right.
That the guy who fomented the most vicious attack ever is now gone. And he's gone is because of our ability to hunt them down. Ronald Reagan said it when we chased down the terrorists and captured those that had hijacked the Achille Lauro and murdered an American citizen out in the Mediterranean. You can run, but you can't hide. And the further you run, the tireder you're going to be when you die.
Absolutely.
So there's a real message in this. It's not over yet, but it's a big blow to them.
It is. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, host of War Stories, the award-winning military documentary series on the Fox News Channel, and he's also his latest book, American Heroes. Check it out. Sir, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
You, Dana. Thanks.
All right, take care. Thanks so much.